Shalom, Apostle Harkman, back at you with this truth, giving all praise to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Rakah Kwadash. And I'm going to entitle this Reexamining Daniel, the 7th chapter. And I'm not going to go into the full breakdown. I'm not going to go into the whole, from the first verse to the last verse. I'm going to focus on verses 8 and 9 and a couple other verses in this chapter. But anyway, when you go to Daniel, the 7th chapter, and you read from the first verse, and if you understand Daniel, the 7th chapter, you should also understand Daniel, the 2nd chapter. Anyway, Daniel, the 7th chapter, the first verse, it says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, this was either the son or the grandson, scholars will argue that, of Nebuchadnezzar. It says the way you read, when you read it, it seems like it's his son. So, like I said, scholars argue that whether that's his son or his grandson. It says in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told us some of the matters. Daniel spake, second verse, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven strove upon the great sea. And the four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, which represents the Assyrian kingdom, which I've been to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, or the Metropolitan Museum, which is located on Fifth Avenue between, 85th Street and 83rd Street. And if you go to the, I believe it's the Middle Eastern section, they have on the walls, when you go to that section, they have the lions with the eagle's wings, and they tell you in the caption or the placard, it tells you that that represents the Assyrians. And I believe that those sculptures, I would say, on the wall are actual. They got it from the Middle East. So that's your your Bible prophecy and your secular history, hand in hand. Because this is why this so-called white man, the scholars, the biblical scholars, the super elite, the archaeologists, the historians, they know that the Bible is accurate based upon what they dug up or found in these areas of the Middle East. So they know that there was an actual Assyrian kingdom, rulership. But it said that the eagle, which represented the Assyrians, stood up on his feet. And it says, I beheld till the wings were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And that's the beginning of the Babylonian Empire, which, by the way, the king at that time, Nebuchadnezzar, was a Assyrian. Now, what was taught at One West was that they were Cushites. They were not Cushites. And the reason why that was taught that way, because when you go to Genesis the 10th chapter and you read about Nimrod, he was a Cushite, and that kingdom was known as the Babylonian empire, kingdom, which at that time the king was a Cushite. But this Babylonian empire, when we talk about 2,600 years ago, that was an Assyrian. When you read the go into the name of Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar, you find out that they're Assyrians. So that kingdom, pursuant to the scriptures, ruled for approximately 70 years. And then you have it says, and behold, another beast, a second like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it, and they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. That represents the Medes. And what happened was Darius the Mede took down Belshazzar. And when he took, and that was a surgical strike. It wasn't a major battle where, houses and villages and cities were destroyed. It was a surgical strike where he was put to death, and he knew he was going to be put to death, and his kingdom was going to come to nothing by the handwriting on the wall, many tickle, which that's in the scriptures, and that actually happened. And he was with his lords, and they were drinking. They were some were probably drunk, others were buzzed. They were filled with the king's meat, which was rich food, which made you tired and lazy and want to go to sleep. And that's when Darius, the Medes, took them down. And basically, what Darius did was made Babylon a province of the Mede Empire, which later became the Medo-Persian Empire. And what happened was they took Daniel and they gave Daniel a high office. They made him a president. So that word president is not new to the United States. That the word president goes back during that time, because Daniel was a president. And I believe that's Daniel, the 6th chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, it says, and then it goes into the 6th verse. After this I beheld in another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Now that leopard represents Alexander the Greek, and he had 4 generals that came up with him: Lysimaeus, Cassandra, Seleucid, and Ptolemy. And he died at the age of 32, and they took over, and the kingdom was split. And there's the whole history on the Ptolemaic dynasty and the Seleucid dynasty, which was a series of wars that they had back and forth with them and their sons and their sons' sons. It says, and this is all found in secular history. This is how we know that the scriptures are accurate. It says, after this I saw in the night vision, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth, and it devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue set up provinces of Rome. With the Palestine was one of the provinces with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Now, the reason why it was diverse from the other beasts because you had kings sit up on thrones. The Roman Empire was different. You had the Senate voted in who they wanted to be the emperor. So it wasn't up to an individual sitting on the throne and his son sat on the throne afterward and his son after him. No, you had Edomites sit up on the throne from different family lines, and it was based upon the Senate. Anyway, in the 8th verse it says, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. Before now, what you got to understand is you have a lot of so-called biblical scholars, Christian historians, and people who call themselves, able to break down the prophecies of the scriptures. A lot of them go off. Some of them are on point. Some of them are partially right, and some of them are just totally off. Because right here, the 8th verse is talking about the second part, the second part of the Roman Empire, which is NATO, the EU, which includes the United States. It says, I considered the horns, and mainly the chief of this empire would be America. The president would be your like you had Caesars back then, you had presidents now. And just like you had Barack Obama, he was the so-called first so-called black president. You had so-called black emperors or Caesars at that, going back to the Roman Empire, which a lot of people don't know that. It says, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. Now this is talking about after the ancient pagan Roman Empire, and this is the beginning of this new empire, which started with Great Britain. Out of Great Britain came America, or the U.S. Then you had Spain, which was one of the heads. Then you had the French, which were the Gauls, I believe. And it says, I considered the horns, and behold, there were. So the 7th verse is talking about the ancient pagan Roman Empire. The 8th verse is talking about this system today. It said, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. Now, roots, in order for a tree to grow or a plant to grow, it has to first, you plant a seed, then out of the seed comes roots, and those roots take the nourishment from the ground to make the tree grow or the plant grow. So when it said that these were plucked up by the roots, meaning they were pulled up out of this continent called America. Because you don't have in Louisiana, in the middle part of America, you don't have a French ruler. You have the so-called president of the United States, and he's the president of all the several states. So when did that happen? When it was a series of, it was 3 wars. You had the Spanish-American War, the French-American War, and then you had the Revolutionary War, which the Revolutionary War was the war between the red coats and the blue coats, which the U.S. military defeated all these 3 powers. So that's what that's talking about. So that little horn is talking about represents America. Sometimes it's talking about a man, like in certain places, it actually talks about little horn represents an actual man, but this little horn represents the America itself, the U.S., which the reason why it was known as little, because it started as a group of what 13 colonies in the Northeast. Now, when you go into secular history, what made America great is when they pushed out further west. That's why you had the railroad system, and you had the Moabites, which are the Chinese, build that railroad system, and you had Jake, which was slave, because you had to build this country up, so you needed manpower. So that's why it was called the Little Horn, and now it's a major nation, and the so-called president is considered the leader of the free world. So that 8th verse, the 7th verse is talking about the ancient Roman Empire. The 8th verse is talking about this system today. It says, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. Because a lot of great things came out of America at one time. The fact that everybody that want to go from one place to another, they can hop on a plane. Well, who came up with the idea of the plane? It was the Wright brothers. So the Most High put the spirit on America and the Americans to build this place up. Just like Egypt was built up. Egypt was a small little kingdom that became a great kingdom, and it went down. And all these kingdoms, all these empires that came into power, they all went down. They all had an end. So you should ask yourself, is America the kingdom of heaven? Is Uncle Sam the most, was it Uncle Sam? Uncle Sam, yeah. The cracker that makes Hebrew National hot dogs, that devil, is that the Most High? No, that's telling you right there that all these kingdoms were set up and established. The last kingdom to be set up and established, or empire, is America, NATO, the EU. And through this empire, they're going to administer that chip. So we're at the end of the thing. We're at the last few pages of the last chapter of a book. Because after this, and this is how you know that verse 8 is talking about America, NATO, and the EU, because in the 9th verse it tells you how the Lord's going to come back. And I really don't have to read that. Somebody else can pick up on it, or I may come back and read further, because we should all know Daniel, the 7th chapter, especially if you're in Great Millstone. Everybody that's been in Great Millstone for at least 6 months or more, you should know this. And I see we're going to have to institute these tests all over again. And we're going to be putting fire on you, putting flames to your asses, man. You guys that's been bullshitting and lollygagging, you're going to be out of here very soon. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom. And like I said, this here, I didn't read the whole chapter. You know, this is open to, making response videos and continuing where I just left off. You know, I may come back and go further into the book of Daniel, or I may just go, which I'm pretty sure if you go to my main page, which is, what is the 666 mark, I'm pretty sure that there's a video or two that I did covering Daniel 7. If not myself, somebody else in Great Millstone. And for you guys out there that don't know what to, you do videos, but you don't have a topic. Well, what's your problem, man? Huh? Anyway, with that, I'll see you on the comment board. And like I said, you can respond to this and build upon this. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom.